We are back in the Quit Talk Coach's Corner with Coach John Messina.
Welcome back, and Dan, we're going to go into your background a little bit. Okay, let's talk about your background. How you got involved in athletics, and why would you want to be an athletic director?
I missed a meeting.
You missed a meeting.
Well, I was born and brought up in the Boston area. I went to.
We never would have known, by the way.
I don't
With
know.
that accent, yeah.
You know, I don't know why how people can just tell.
And he's got
the car.
and he's got the Red Sox hat on.
Yeah.
Well, sure, naturally.
And yeah, we were avid Red Sox fans. We used to get on the subway and just go into the city and watch the Red Sox almost every weekend. What a great facility Fenway Park is. And the Boston Garden, the old Boston Garden.
The original.
The original.
Parquet
yeah.
floor.
If you didn't see
Oh,
a
you
rat
bet.
in the stands, you didn't see the Boston
And
Garden.
it was that hot in there all the time, right? Everybody
Yes,
said it was
yeah.
just brutal. in
And
there.
everybody smoked. I mean, by the third period of a Bruins game, you couldn't see. But I got into teaching in the Boston area. Somebody told me you can make 3 times as much money doing something else, and I ended up working for the Honeywell Defense Systems for a couple of years, and then they transferred me down to Florida, and that's how I got here in 1980 on a government contract, worked for Martin Marietta, and for about 12 years. And it was, you know, we were building bombs, basically. I worked for the Hellfire missile, and I was program manager for the vertical launch system.
Was this around Melbourne?
This was in Ocala.
Oh, okay.
And it was the reward was not there. The short or long-term reward to see a kid. My reward was watching 200 missiles go out the door a week, and there was something missing. So I got back into the school system in 1991 in New Smyrna Beach. Worked at a middle school for about 3 years. Got hooked up with Coach John Moranto from Daytona. He was a famous mainland coach up there, and I was his defensive coordinator for a while. And he was at New Smyrna Beach. When he left New Smyrna and went to mainland, he recommended me to be the athletic director at New Smyrna. And I thought,
Wow.
geez, I don't want to do that. I love coaching, but after some thought and talking to the wife, we decided to go with the AD position. Principal that hired me over the summer got another job at a brand new school, Pine Ridge High School. It was just a year old, and he asked me to go with him. And I said, I'm fat, dumb, and happy right here. I just hired Jerry Odom, who was another legend out of Merritt Island back then. But he convinced me to go. So I was at Pine Ridge High School for about 10 years. And there was a time between Christmas and New Year's where I saw on the FHSAA an ad for a brand new school in Port St. Lucie. And I said to my wife, I'm going to just see if I'm marketable and throw my resume out there. Jay Stewart called a couple days later, and I was interviewed by Helen Roberts, and here I am.
10 years later?
Yeah.
10 years later.
Wow.
How difficult was it to start up a program from scratch?
It was fun. It really was. We had a house in Edgewater, Florida, which is 140 miles from here, and I would get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, drive here by 8, leave here at 6 at night, get home by 8.
Oh,
We did
no.
that for 8 months till we sold the house. But it was worth every mile to come to Port St. Lucie. It was just great. And to open up a new school, how fortunate a person can be to do that.
Yes, and you have had great success at Treasure Coast. I know your girls' basketball team has done excellent. Your baseball team. I got one of my former players, Mike Sedone.
Mike Sindone coaching, yes.
Coaching now,
Yeah.
and your football team. I always thought Coach Jones did his best coaching last year. You went from a horrible season 2 years ago, 0-9, and he just turned it around last year.
He has matured so much. We had Coach Shep, who's now the head coach at Westwood, as his right hand, and those two, they're goofy guys. You don't realize it. I had Coach Shep steal my truck in the parking lot one day. I couldn't find it for hours. And that was his last day. He was leaving to go up north, and he just grabbed my keys. I didn't see it, and he just stole my truck.
He thought it was his truck?
Yeah. So no, yeah. So we have a lot of fun, but Coach Jones has matured so well. He's got a great coaching staff right now, very dedicated.
Yes.
And his thing is, I'm going to make gentlemen out of these people first. When we went 0-10, we have a cannon. We blow it off every time we score a touchdown. You know we didn't blow that cannon off that whole year because we didn't score a touchdown at home the whole year. And and people were saying, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to? You know, he's making men out of these kids. I'm going to give him the time to do what he does best. Same kids, next year, we're 7-3.
And they're doing very well this year.
And they're doing very well this year.
I'll tell you another funny thing. When I was the AD at Centennial, I used to hate that tunnel. But, geez, I'm announcing last week. I said, boy, that thing looks pretty cool. You guys have a great school spirit, and you have the big game with Centennial. Now, it's not as big as it was when we first opened up, when we didn't have Vero and when we didn't have Central in the district. It was just the winner of our game went.
Yep.
Most of the time, and we have had some great games. The ironic thing was, and I think we're about even, maybe you guys got a one-game edge or something like that, there has not been that many close games.
No, there really hasn't. Somebody blows somebody else out.
Yeah, and, we had that game, I think it was 3 years ago, that Centennial was fortunate enough to win in double overtime, to win the district title that way. But, once Vero got in, I think that took a little bit of luster. But
before Vero got in, we went up there twice, and they paid us to go because they were going to beat us. They paid us a lot of money to go to Vero, two years in a row, and we beat them 2 years in a row. Now we can't do it.
Now they won't pay you. now they won't pay you. But this is a week, and I think, as we were talking with Mike before, basically this is your whole season, right?
It's coming down to it.
You're off the last week, right?
Yeah. So, well, we're going to play Titusville next week.
Titusville next week, and then hopefully, for Treasure Coast's sake, you'll be playing in the playoffs. But I mean, this is a week where you want to make sure there's no mistakes. And I saw you guys play against Martin County, and I thought the first half it was spectacular. You played, and Kirkendall kind of got you in the second half. And then last week, and Greg, you can jump in here on that. It was an unusual game. You had 1 first down and 14 points in the first half.
Well, one of the things Coach Jones likes to do is he will control. What he tells his kids is, you have 4 downs. If you get 3 downs each time, you're going to get a first down every time. So it's going to be a ground game. It's not going to be an exciting game. It's not going to be Florida State out there. But he is going to grind the ball. And, he only got 1 first down in the first half.
Oh, yeah.
It got better in the second half,
yes,
but
it did.
For both teams,
there were
actually.
two different games.
Yes.
They were like totally different.
They adjusted very well.
Yes.
I know Coach Zacchio from Pace. He was one of my coaches when I was down there, and he put a different quarterback in there, a little more speed.
Yeah.
But then you guys countered that, and I think the most impressive thing at the end of the game is 4 minutes to go. You had the ball. Pace is out of timeouts. You never gave him the ball back.
No.
And I thought that was a real.
And that's where you become a hero or a bum for Saturday morning.
Yes, on that. Dan, a few other things. You were involved a lot in the FIAAA program in the state. Can you go over that, please?
Yeah, the FIAAA is the Florida Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association. Once you can decipher that, basically it's our organization of athletic directors through the state. And every athletic director that is a member of the FHSAA is a member of the FIAAA. And the FIAAA right now, one of the programs they run is a mentoring program for new ADs. If you look around the state, the average lifespan of an AD is 3 years.
So I went
30. Really?
Yeah, we have a unique situation here in St. Lucie County because a lot of the ADs in St. Lucie County belong to or are involved with the FIAAA. There's a turnover of ADs because if you look at a high school and you need an AD, principal doesn't know what an AD does. They will say, okay, you can be the AD, and you flounder, and it's frustrating. There's a lot of hours in it. There's a lot of confrontations in it with either coaches or parents or facilities. You have to know and be proactive to keep problems off a principal's desk. That is a frustrating avenue to take for someone who's never done it.
Now, do you guys hire coaches, or is that principal?
That is a principal. We will recommend.
Okay. And sometimes it depends on the principals. I know when I worked with Mr. Lynch and Mr. Sullivan and some of the principals, they knew very well. I would do all the interviews and give them their recommendation,
Yes.
and then they would always meet them. And some other principals want to do that themselves. That's up to them. But, what Dan said, it's not a rewarding job from the outside. It's a very self-rewarding job. It's being an athletic director. First time I was an AD was 1983. And boy, things have changed since then. And, I did it close to 30 years. And it's just so different. I mean, people say, what's your prime job? And I think your prime job is that you're making sure that your school and your district follows the rules. You can't control winning. Anybody that says an athletic director can control winning does not understand what the job's about. Your job is to make sure those kids represent your school well on the field and off the field, okay? Because athletics is a privilege. You don't have to play athletics. It's a privilege.
Okay, now being an athletic director, everybody laughs at me here at the station because I'm already planning like next baseball season type thing. So I'm always working ahead. You guys,
I'm always a game ahead. I'm already working on Titusville game. The Friday night's done for me. I'm ready to do our senior night and get that rolling.
But you're also working the basketball
season.
schedule.
It's all done.
And all the other stuff.
That's all done.
Yeah.
Wow.
Your fall schedules and your winter schedules are done in March and April now.
Wow.
Yeah, that much ahead.
And you tweak it as it goes.
Yeah. Sure,
but,
obviously.
And then, soccer when you got to share fields
Yep.
and stuff like that. But again, your job is to make sure you put the kids in a position to succeed. Okay, that's your main job. You can't control. I never micromanaged a coach. Okay, if somebody came up and asked me my opinion, and I was always there for my coaches. I mean, some sports, baseball and softball, and I knew a little more than the other sports. But if somebody wants to sit down and talk, you're there for them. You're there to put an arm around them. You're not there to scold them, because you got to deal with things after a season. This is not the NFL, and this is not college where you let a coach go in the middle of the year because you can't.
No, it's education-based sports. We're there to teach kids things.
Yeah.
So we're an extension of the classroom, and you do that by teaching teamwork and dedication, time management, and that's what you work the kids. And one thing I look at my job is I'm the coach of the coaches. I coach the coaches. If they fail as a coach, I fail as a leader. And that's one way of looking. There's another thing about athletic directors, too, throughout the state. There is no Department of Education job description for an athletic director. There is no such position. I'm a teacher on assignment. I've been a teacher on assignment for 22 years. I'm a social studies teacher. In other counties, like Martin County, they require you to be an assistant principal to be an athletic director.
Really? I didn't know that.
In Volusia County, you don't even have to have a degree to be I know a clerk who was an athletic director in Volusia County. So different counties look at it differently. And then once you get into that county, the principals look at you differently. John's principal would give him different things to do than mine would, for example. It's jobs as assigned.
Now, Coach Rick McGuire and I used to talk about this a lot, about coaches who are teachers. And then,
And you have your office.
And then the outside, I don't know what you call that, but anyway.
Well, you're
per diem coach, if you will.
volunteer outside coaches. And the problem with that, and I have had some great ones over the years, and I have some that weren't so great. They make a mistake. It could cost you forfeit a game. It could cost you a fine. It can cost the school a lot of embarrassment. And you know what the coach can say to you? See ya, I'm gone. Because he doesn't need that job.
He doesn't need the job, and his teaching certificate doesn't have anything to do with it.
And one of the things that we're going to go into, and this is going to be absolutely crazy, is that next year, based on July 1st, based on a Senate bill, and that was signed by the governor, you can go to any school that you want if you provide your own transportation and if there's room. Now, if I'm a parent, it was passed as an academic bill. If I'm a parent and I'm thinking of academics, I like that because I would like to send my son or daughter to the best possible school academically, sure. Yeah. But people are going to use this. And I know, and Dan and I have talked about this a lot of time, hopefully the school superintendents are going to tweak this a little bit, the county superintendent. But this is a bill passed by the governor, signed, with a Republican legislature and a Republican governor. Part of this is going to go through. So what's going to happen next year?
I disagree. I don't think it's going to go through because this is going to start tapping into superintendents and districts' money. When they realize that their FTE count and the money that they get for students, and if my students want to go to Martin County because they got a better program, the district is going to lose money because of that. And I think the superintendents are going to step up. I don't see the big cloud over the FHSAA anymore that we've seen.
Right.
I'm
Why
hoping
did
it
that
just
legislator from Lakeland retire?
no, somebody else did.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to get into. But you know what, Dan? There's two ways around that too. One, it's not going to stop transfers within the county.
No.
It's going to be open if there's room. If Treasure Coast has room, you got to take that student in if they require it and they provide their own transportation. But changing counties, they can go around that, and we were talking about that with a few of the coaches the other day. I go to private school for a week, and then I transfer. How can you stop that? So say I went to a private school in St. Lucie County, I can go to a public school in Martin County because now I'm not taking away FTE money. So there's and see, you assign
So you can go to a prep school for
a day.
And believe me, there are parents out there that
oh yeah.
sports is way more important than academics because their child is going to play Division I and make them rich.
And now we're only talking about 7, 8 high schools in this county. When you get down to Dade County where they got 40 schools, okay, you're not telling me that the major football schools are not checking into these Pop Warner leagues and getting these best kids already wherever they live. I mean, they're way ahead of us. I was talking to one of my former principals who has a son that's one of the football coaches down there, and he says, John, they're talking to kids in 7th and 8th grade because now you're able to do that. So I can see the superintendent saying, okay, we got to make some kind of deal. You can't go from school to school because the FTE money. But if they drop out of school for, say, a week or say, let me give you a hypothetical situation. Say you got a football player that's a freshman, okay? Second semester he goes to private school, and then the next year he can go to any high school he wants in any part of the state because you can't stop that. So think of that one.
Wow.
We've lost touch with loyalty to your high school.
Wow.
No, there's no
loyalty.
Because
that's long gone.
I guess about 10 years ago we had a big vote in the state to separate public and private schools. And it was very close. There was about 60 people on the representative assembly that voted, and I think the vote was like 36-24, something like that. It was pretty close. It didn't pass, and one of the reasons it didn't pass because people talk about there's more private schools than public schools in the state, which shocked me that are in the high school association. But when I was up at a wedding in September up in New Jersey separated for football the big-time private schools and the big-time public schools. Don Bosco and St. Joseph's, the ones that travel also, they're in their own separate playoff, okay? And the public schools are in their own separate playoff. And in fact, they have their own conferences. They don't even play each other during the year. So who knows where that's going to come down. But, I mean, it's going to be hard, legitimately. Do you take somebody in? I mean, do you take somebody at their word? I'm coming here for academic reasons, okay? And we have some great schools. I mean, like a school like Lincoln Park who won't be affected because it's a magnet school. Everybody and your cousin will want to go there because it's an A school. But if you got a choice, and say you're 3 counties down the road and you're on the borderline and one school is a D and across the borderline is an A school, you as a parent, what would you want to do? You would want to go to the A school. And I don't know how they can possibly monitor that except let it happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think is going to happen on that. Another thing, Dan, that I think you and I have talked about over the years, and sometimes we fight a losing battle, is sportsmanship. I mean, how do we, you see some of these athletes on TV and some of the things that they do, even during a game, after a game, before a game, how do we get our high school kids to just cut that stuff out, you know?
You got to instill in their heads that the difference between education-based sports and entertainment-based sports. Entertainment-based sports is where you can buy a ticket, scream and holler and throw things at an official for 40 minutes or 60 minutes and go home. You can't do that at a high school game. We're trying to teach kids sportsmanship and a whole bunch of other things, and they see adults acting like this, and it's very difficult to grasp your hands around it and say, stop watching and stop making them your idol.
Yeah, you watch these wide receivers, and they're getting beat 26-0. You know, this is in the pros. And they catch a pass for a first down. They're losing 26-0, and they do a celebration. I would run back in the huddle and try to get the next play off as quick as possible. But these are what kids are looking at now.
Yeah, but can you imagine Don Shula allowing that?
It never happened.
Yeah.
It
That would
never happen.
You're off the team tomorrow, pal.
There was a basketball team years ago in Texas, and not too many years ago, when LeBron James used to do the powder before the game. He used to put his hands in the powder and throw it up in the air. Well, this kid, unbeknownst to his coach, did the same thing. He came out on the court, had the powder, threw it up in the air. Now, if you're watching LeBron James and a pro team, they cut to a commercial. Then all these people come out with brooms and clean the floor. That game was stopped for 40 minutes till they could find a custodian and brooms to clean the floor so they can continue.
You know, when Fred and I were talking college football last week, one of the schools we brought up was Navy. They beat Houston the week before, and they had no penalties. No penalties, okay? And if Navy gets a penalty, it's an offside, it's a legal procedure. They don't get, or maybe one or twice holding call. They never get unsportsmanlike. And look at what they do with the talent that they have. I mean, that's who you got to emulate. And also the respect for the officials. I mean, I think I learned that at a very young age when I was coaching. Boy, you're nice to somebody, you're going to get that close call.
I used to love doing games at the Air Force Academy.
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, those crowds there were so – well, actually, that whole area, you know, BYU, of course, that's a whole different religious thing. But the Air Force Academy, you talk about polite. It was amazing.
Wow.
Those crowds, the crowds were great, and you do not hear a word from the players. Remember the big-time college official, Irv Brown?
Yes.
Anyway, Irv and I go back 9 million years. And he used to tell me stories about doing games at the academies, whether it was Navy or Army or whatever. And he said, in all the years he did those games, he never heard a bad word from one of those kids. Service Academy.
It can be done.
It can be done, and you know that's part of coaching, which is part of teaching, and you got to show respect for the officials. I mean, you know, over the years, I think we have got to know some of the officials very well as friends, and you know, a lot of them are former coaches. They're not out there to favor one team or another. Are they going to miss a call? I always remember I was in this is going way back in the early 80s down at Pace, and we were in a regional final game, and you know that's the game that means everything.
Sure.
You go to state or you don't, you go home. And the umpire who I had met years ago blew a call. And I go running out there, and those were the days you're allowed to go running out there. And as I'm running out there, he says, "John, I messed up the call. I blew it. I'm sorry, I blew it." So I didn't know what to do. He says, "Just yell at me for a few minutes and walk back," you know. But you know, when you say something like that, you realize that they're human. But I always try to tell when I was coaching, you know, especially with somebody like my catcher, never turn around and look at that umpire where the strike zone is. After the inning's over, say, where was that? You'll get the next call.
Yeah.
If you berate the umpires, you're definitely not going to get a close call.
And, you know, that's why I don't like replay. I don't like replay for that perfect example. The game is played by humans last time I checked.
Yep.
And it's umpired by humans. So what? Everybody's going to make a mistake at one time or another.
Do you think they'll phase out officials in the years to come? We might not be around, but they might phase them
might
out.
see that.
I think you're going to see it.
You know, I had a
I'm
coach
very
one
serious.
time, I won't mention his name, but he coached recently for Treasure Coast High School, and the officials knew when they walked in the facility that, you know, they were going to have issues. And then more than once, I just pulled him aside and said, really, with you yelling at them, do you expect them to turn to you and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, let me change that call for you"? It's not going to happen. Stop.
You know, the old thing about, you know, I'm going to use basketball coaches as an example. I'm going to berate the official the whole time, and he's going to give me a close call. No, he's not. Not on your level. Not unless you won 10 state titles, and then maybe you'll get it. You know,
He's wearing the stripes, not you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You end up playing 2 teams, not 1.
And it's really interesting doing college basketball with IRSC. And, you know, the refs that we have, and actually we had a couple guys at Lynn University the other day. I mean, these guys are college Division I referees that happen to do, you know, down to state college level too. And so, you know, he was laughing at some of the guys. He said, let me tell you who I'm going to have problems with this year. And he went down this laundry list of all these coaches, you know, and it's hysterical. But man, you talk about memories.
Yeah, and you got to know the rules to when to approach an official and when you're not. I know one of the things we're going to do at Martin County this year is, you know, we have that dead time, you know, 2 weeks before we can start practicing. We're bringing officials in, and they're actually going to teach a class. The kids are going to go in a classroom. We're going to go how to approach them. And I always remember a situation where we were hosting the state tournament. 2 teams which had played each other during the year. They were playing in the state semifinal. In the first inning, one of the players got hit. Now, you're not going to hit anybody in the first inning, please. So the next inning, one of their batters, and they had runners on first and second. The other team who did the pitch that got hit, he throws a curveball, and it hits the guy in the foot, and both teams were ready to charge each other. I mean,
a curveball?
And I'm saying to myself, I go out there in the middle. I says, Coach, first of all, he's loading the bases. He doesn't want to do that. So we got to throw him out of the game. You know, he's looking at me like, you know, I'm the director. I was throw him out. I said, first of all, that's not. The umpires are looking at him. Why would you do it? If he's going to hit you, it's not going to be a curve. And he's not going to hit you on a 3-1 pitch that loads the bases, too. And you got to know. But then you think of those, what was it, last year, those officials in Texas got assaulted by the football players. And you know, it's just like they're part of the game, but they're part of the game that you don't want to notice. The best officials are the ones that you don't notice. You know, who did those games.
You bet.
Dan, with just a few minutes left, one of the things I want to ask you is if you had to ask for any improvements in athletics in St. Lucie County, what are some of the things that you would ask for?
When do I retire?
Soon. You gotta make me for early bird breakfast.
I think one of the things we truly need to look at is trainers.
Yes. Trainers, yes. Thank you very much.
That was not pre-planned.
Hey, that is my pet peeve.
I mean, you know, that's something I remember when we had them, and it was so nice because we had them at practice. I mean, at games, sometimes you are covered. Sometimes we're lucky enough to get a doctor there. We have an ambulance there, and I know you and I, for the last few years, were able to hire a parent who was a certified trainer that really did a nice job with it. But you're always worried about practice because that puts the emphasis on the coach to really understand what they're doing. Now that the state has really pushed the concussion, you know, stigma that you have to know when there are concussions, I know the coaches have to take classes, Dan, but is that enough?
Well, not in my world, because what we do, you know, we have fire drills at school all the time. There's a fire drill. This is what you do.
Sure.
Well, nobody does fire drills or emergency situations at a school for after-school activities. But I make my coach.
Interesting. Wow.
I make my coaches go through the first couple of weeks. What are you going to do? A kid just went down and he's bleeding really bad. What are you going to do? Who's calling 911? Who's going to be at the gate? Who's going to meet the medics to steer them where they need to go? Who's going to call the parent? You have to have that in line, in place, ready to go. You're not a trainer, but you can do best practice.
And you got to have a plan. If something happens, where do you go?
If you're in a court of law and you can say, I didn't have a plan, I didn't know what to do, you're screwed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No doubt about it.
You know, one of the things that I learned over the year, and you know, I did it in all the sports, is I would always talk to the players, you know, before the season and say, you know, I talked to them about concussions, I talked to them about heat exhaustion, but also with football, which we were lucky last few years at Centennial. We had Jamar Chaney helping us, who played in the NFL, and we would always show the kids the proper way to tackle, and we would film it, and have that on there so the kids would actually see that. But there's so many little things that can happen during the year. I mean, years ago, you think in football when you would have what do you call those? Oklahoma drills when when you have one guy blocking and one guy tackling.
Sure.
But and Dan, you taught me this in one of the classes. You got to make sure you don't have 6'5", 250 on one side and 150 on the other side. They have to be equally balanced. Correct?
Yes.
On that?
Yeah.
And then the same thing with the hydration. I think the state this year made you actually put a practice plan in for hydration.
Yes.
And I wonder if there's a way that they have some kind of thermometers out there that measure the heat index. See, I'm thinking for my next project here. Out there on the football field, that when it gets above a certain index, I mean, this is not North Dakota here in the summer.
Well, did anything happen after that poor fella from Sebastian, the young football player who died up there, and that was a hydration.
That was a hydration issue, but it was deemed as an isolated incident. All the coaches and the practice plan that was put in place was legitimate, and it was there.
Okay.
So nobody got in trouble for that. There was just an unfortunate incident for that young man. Even our band has a hydration plan put into place for his practices.
Sure, they're wearing a uniform.
The uniforms and stuff.
Carrying that stuff. But anything else you would like to see in St. Lucie County that, I know we don't have lights at all the facilities and
That's
like
okay.
that.
I get home early.
I know. I knew you were going to say that.
No, I think, I've been at 2 or 3 different districts for athletics, and people may not agree with me, but this is the best I've been at.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I mean, I love.
And I gotta give a plug to Jill Willett. Yeah. She does a great job. She's trying hard, and she is there truly for the kids and to make this a great experience for them at high school.
It's a no-win situation.
Absolutely.
Because whatever you say, the buck's going to go back to you, and people are going to say, well, you're favoring Westwood, which he's never done that.
No.
They said the same thing.
Not saying anything about Jay.
Jay, I mean, Jay did it for 15 years.
As long as you're the county AD and you have a school, you're going to have controversy.
It's going to be that. And you got to try to please anybody. But the big thing, and I think Jill tries to do this the best, I know Jay does, everybody's got to follow the same rules, okay? If you got 6 high schools, everybody's got to do the same rules, whether it's, when do you start playing, the amount of games, ticket sales, everything. Everybody's got to be on that same page, which I think is really important. But I know what you were saying about lights. I know when I saw them playing all night games this year, so we'll be getting back. But that was something. When I was down at Pace, we played all our games at night, and we played just about everything at night down there. And, it's nice going home a little bit early.
Yeah.
And
hey, that's it, guys. We are done for another week.
Dan, I'm going to wish you best of luck on Friday night.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
And Greg and I will be
John
in the booth.
And I'll see you.
All right, I'll come see you at half.
And I'll be neutral. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you,
All
everybody,
right.
and we'll see you next week.
You have been watching and to the Quit Talk Coaches Corner right here on WPSL, Port St. Lucie. Talk of the Treasure Coast. WSTU in Stewart, Martin County's Heritage Station.